Everybody thinks that good music is what it takes to succeed as an artist. But in my point of view, having really killer music is like a high school diploma, right? That's like the base level of entry. So, what is it that you need to go farther? I think you have to cultivate mental resiliency and you have to just have crazy self belief within yourself, almost delusional self belief, right? Mix that with an undying work ethic, and you will get places.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. We have a really exciting episode for you this week. But before we dive in, I want to share once more about something really fun and really exciting that's coming up. The last 4 days in June, the 27th through the 30th, we are going to be doing the second annual Cult Creatives Build a Brand Workshop. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about the Cult Creatives, an amazing branding and marketing agency that I work with. And you've also heard me talk a lot about branding. You've heard me and my guests talk about how it's really important to know who you are as an artist, from your visual identity and how you're portraying yourself, but even on a deeper level, like, what do you actually stand for? What are you all about? What do you believe in? What are you saying as an artist besides just making music? You know, one of the things that we say is the music is just the soundtrack to the movie. So have you figured out what your movie actually is? You know, this is why marketing can be hard for a lot of artists, and it seems like it's always an uphill battle. It's because we haven't really actually figured out what are we saying and what are we posting about besides the fact that you have a new song coming out. Cool. Everyone has a new song coming out. What else are you saying? What else are you about? So that's what this Build a Brand workshop is all about, to spend 4 days to work with a professional branding and marketing agency. The Cult Creatives team is incredible. We're also going to have guest speakers every day. We have Henry Fong, Flosstradamus, Valentino Khan, badass OG guys that have been in the game for a long time, that have incredible brands. They're going to be there to hang out with you, to share, answer questions. And then most importantly, on the last day, we're doing a full day of photo shoot. So you are going to walk away with super high level professional quality photos, as well as just a super clear understanding and game plan and strategy for your brand and how to actually really build a fan base around it. So if you're interested, you can get more info at thecultcreatives.com/workshop. There will be a link there where you can book your call. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. But also, if you just want to hit me up directly, send me a DM and we can hop on a call. I'll tell you more about it, but we would love to see you there. Now, as far as my guest today, he is not only one of my favorite artists, but one of my favorite humans. I recently saw him at EDC and just had a blast hanging out with him. Such a genuine guy. He went to Icon Collective many years ago when I taught there, and he has since gone on to build an incredible brand and career for himself as a progressive and melodic techno artist, totally crushing the game right now. This is Anakim.
What's up, Nick? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for being here, man. So excited that we can do this. I know we've been talking about having this conversation for a while, and today is the day that we get to sit down and dive in. So I am very excited.
Me too. Me too. A lot to talk about today.
Yeah, dude, we have a lot to catch up on. You and I have known each other for a long time. You are, one of the many guests that I've had that was a student from Icon Collective, like back in the day. Went through that program, really dedicated yourself to your craft, to being an artist, to being a producer, and are now out there doing some fucking cool stuff. So really excited to hear a bit about, your journey and also everything that you're up to today. First off, I'll say it was so awesome to see you at EDC. That was a really cool, pleasant surprise, just to be like rocking out on stage and then turn to the side and be like, oh shit, dude, what's up? Like, that was just, the universe brought us together, and that was super special for me. So I'm glad that happened.
The universe always works that way. And honestly, running into you at EDC was one of the highlights of my entire weekend.
I agree, bro. I agree. That was really cool. Got to link up on the last day as well. And my highlight was getting to introduce you and Mikey Francis, one of my brothers, a longtime client. He launched his project, Human 404. I'm calling you guys the Vegas Techno Mafia because y'all are guys that live out in Vegas that are making really, really cool techno music. So that was great to get you guys introduced. And then also my favorite part about that was that y'all both brought your wives out too. And The wives hit it off. They became friends. It was just like such good, perfect, positive vibes. Like it was just so fun. It was special.
And to top that off, I know a lot of people don't know who Mikey is, but we just found out that our birthdays are like a week or so apart. He also lives literally 5 minutes away from the community that I live in here in Summerlin. It's just so many things.
Yeah, dude. And I felt that. I was like, you guys need to know each other. You guys are just both really cool, good, positive dudes making similar music. So, yeah, the planetary alignments were strong that day for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, man. Well, look, I want to go back to I want to hear a bit about your origin story cuz from what
Okay.
I remember, I don't know if you came to LA for acting, but weren't you like doing acting, I think in your early days? Is that what brought you to
Yeah.
LA? Tell me the story.
No, prior to me transferring to UCLA, I was a junior transfer. I was modeling in
Okay.
Los Angeles. I was living in San Diego with my parents still, and I only wanted to go to UCLA. That was literally the only college that I wanted to attend. My agency that was based in San Diego always sent me on castings to Los Angeles. So when I got into UCLA and I was like firmly in Westwood, I was still modeling, but the modeling led into commercials. And it just so happened that the first commercial that I went out for, I believe it was a Wendy's commercial, a Wendy's national commercial, I ended up booking. And so I found myself on set and I'm, acting for this Wendy's commercial. And it was at that point that I realized, oh, this thing that I watched, this TV that I watched, all these TV shows that I watched, right? What seemed like it was so far away actually was just within my reach, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm based in Los Angeles and I found myself on set. So I said, why don't I just go for this acting thing? Like, I know I don't have any experience or whatever, but if I can just land a good acting class and really dedicate myself to that, I bet I can start booking TV shows. And it took 2 years, but I found myself on TV shows like Pretty Little Liars, Big Bang Theory, Castle, CSI New York, and throughout the time that I was pursuing acting, on the weekends, and it was on the weekends I was going to raves and big festivals, big club shows, Hollywood Palladium, Exchange LA, stuff like that. My very first rave ever was EDC 2010. So
Ooh.
from that point on, I was
Yeah.
literally right the last
The
EDC that
the
was in
the
Los Angeles.
Yeah, dude, that was kind of like a historical moment. The last LA EDC. I was there as well.
I
Yeah.
I think it was, and I think it was for a lot of people too, because I meet a lot of people, and we talk about what our first festival was, and a lot of people that I meet, they say EDC 2010 was their very very first
Yeah.
festival. So yeah, so that was my first festival. Was just doing that on the weekends. My friend group who introduced me to rave culture, they were into it, but I became obsessed with it.
Hmm.
So during the 4 years that I was pursuing acting and I was on TV shows and like some movies, the movies weren't big, but I got to work with people like, Terrence Howard, um, Thomas Hayden Church, and, every single person that obviously that was on those TV shows too. Towards 2014, I realized that I just really hated acting. I
Hmm.
hated the process. I hated going into auditions and immediately being judged, right? I hated being stereotyped, um, just put in a box immediately.
Yeah, just based off of how you look.
Yeah, how you look exactly, and then for example, I would go into auditions and within the character breakdown, it would give you the character, and I would prep my character, and then without fail, at the end of every audition, they'd be like, "Oh wow, Ricardo, that was so good. Is there any way you could possibly do it with an urban accent?" And in my mind, I'm like, "You guys just want to reduce me to like somebody ghetto, right? Every single time."
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I got so disenchanted with the whole acting world, and then I randomly read an article. Oh no, it was an interview interviewing Mac J.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I remembered seeing him on the Coachella lineup, and I didn't know who he was. So I was like, "Oh, let me read about this guy." Apparently, he's a DJ,
Yeah.
And in that specific interview, he mentioned this school that he went to, this music production school that he went to, where he learned how to actually produce music on a computer, right? And that school was called Icon Collective. And so that was just burned in my memory as I'm just so unhappy going on auditions and whatnot and being in acting class through 2014. I kept thinking about this school called Icon, and I hit up a friend named Ashley Johansson, and
Who used
Ashley,
to
I
be my
asked her.
intern.
That's right. That's right. So many connections, right? I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
Shout out Ashley Johansson. Okay, wait. Let's close the loop. Speaking of EDC 2010, that was her first rave because I fucking took her to it. Because I was
Wow.
I was listening to Dead Mouse every day when I worked at Capitol Records and just bumping EDM, and she sat next to me and she's like, I kind of like this music that you're listening to every day, and I was like, hey, you want to go to a show with me? And brought her to fucking
That's
EDC. And
so
that's
crazy.
that's her origin story. Yeah, shout out Ashley.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. I didn't realize that. Yeah. So, I knew Ashley worked in the music industry. And so I hit her up and I was like, hey, have you heard of this school called Icon Collective? Is it legit? And she was like, oh yeah, it is legit. Like artists like Jaws and Slander and Keizo, they all went there and they're all about to blow up. And then, I think this was mid 2014. And then sure enough, by the end of that year, like all of those bass artists were massive.
yeah,
And I said to myself, "Oh my God, what's in the water at this school? Like, I,
yeah,
I think I might need to go there." So rewinding, when I was at UCLA, there was a lot of times that I would skip class just to make beats in my room. If you're in college listening to this, go to class. Don't be like me. But I would literally just stay at home making beats on FL Studio. And so, when I applied to Icon, those were the beats that I showed you guys. And then I think that was November, like 2 months later, I
yeah,
found myself sitting in class, January 5th of 2015. I found
yeah.
myself in class, completely quit acting, didn't tell anybody about it, literally went ghost on socials for an entire year because I just wanted to tune out any sort of chatter that could have been like, why are you leaving acting? Things are going well. You're going into music. You don't know anybody in music. All of this negative talk that I could have possibly come across, tune it out by distancing myself from everyone. And then
Mm.
I dedicated myself to the program for all of 2015. And then, January 2016 came. Didn't really know a single person in the music industry, but I had this 2-track EP. And I remembered my friend Aaron Briscoe, who I'd known since kindergarten, but he moved away in third grade. We kind of kept in touch. I remembered Aaron worked at, I believe it was Insomniac at the time. And I sent him the EP and I was like, hey man, I don't really know what to do. And he's like, yo, this is really good. Are you looking for a manager? And I jokingly said, I was like, why do you want to manage me? And he was like, I have all these contacts. I've been thinking about it. Why don't we just try it out? And so I was like, okay, cool. Like, I don't really know anybody else. Why not? What do
Yeah,
I have to lose, right?
yeah,
So from there, Aaron was starting to shop my EP to like artists that he knew. And he happened to have a good relationship with Lane 8 at the time. And Lane 8 was thinking about starting a record label. That record label today is called This Never Happened. So he held on to the tracks for quite a bit of 2016. Meanwhile, I was still just producing, didn't know anybody, was kind of just lost in my apartment, had no idea what to do. But then Lane got back to us later in 2016 and he was like, "Hey, so we've decided that we're going to go in a different direction with the label sonically. So these tracks won't fit the label, but can Ricardo make a mix for me so I can see if he can DJ because we're thinking about taking him on the Southern California portion of his very, very first This Never Happened tour."
Oh wow! And had you been DJing at that point?
Yeah, okay. So prior to going to Icon in 2014, I found a dude on Craigslist who was selling CDJ 900s, like 900s without the waveform or anything,
Yeah,
and a DJM mixer. And so I was like, I really love DJing. I just want to teach myself how to DJ. So for all of 2014, I just taught myself how to DJ in my apartment. So I was DJing, but I was DJing facing the wall,
Yeah, yeah,
totally visioning a crowd, right?
yeah.
And I was doing that literally every single night, every single time I had friends over before we went to the show. I was the one who was DJing and stuff like that. So that's how I learned how to DJ. I taught myself.
Dude, I've seen some videos online now and then of like a kid DJing in front of like just like a TV screen with a crowd on it. And I think that's the most brilliant idea ever is like put the crowd out there, visualize yourself. Like you said, you can just be
Yeah,
staring at a wall or even just like a photo, a picture, but like, the power of manifestation, the power of our mental energy and where we're guiding it, where we're focusing it. I truly believe that is so powerful. So like when I see those videos, I think the videos were kind of filmed from the perspective of like making fun of them. Like, look at this, idiot, but it's like, no, dude, that motherfucker's going to be headlining shows very soon because he's putting himself in that reality. So I think that,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. So I'm gonna tie back into exactly what you just said. So Late Aid listened to the mix, and we ended up getting the offer for the Southern California portion. Mind you, I had never DJ'd outside of my living room apartment, right?
yeah.
So then Aaron ended up introducing me to the talent booker and sound, Mark Andrezic, who's now one of my really good friends, right? And Aaron told him about what we have going on, but then Aaron was like, "Oh, hey, I saw that Jeremy Olander is going to be playing at the end of the month. Is there any way we can get guest lists?" And Mark was like, "How about Ricardo just open?" And we were like, "Oh, yeah, of course. That'd be no problem at all, right?" Mind you, Mark had no idea I had never DJ'd outside of my apartment. He thought I was already DJing everywhere,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like we joke about it today. He always
Yeah.
says, "I would have never booked you had I known that," right?
Hey, there is
But
something so real about fake it till you make it. Like straight up, like it's some real shit. It's some real shit. I've seen so many people like make significant progress in their career, not necessarily having the experience or talent, but having the fucking belief and the confidence. Like it goes a long way. So,
it does go a
yeah.
long way. You're right. So to tie back into the visualization thing, my very, very first show ever was Sound Nightclub. It was a sold out show supporting Jeremy Olander, right?
Yeah.
I was so comfortable being on stage behind the decks DJing in front of the crowd because I had visualized that like thousands of times prior that it literally just felt like being in my own apartment, right? So yeah, tie that
Yeah.
back in.
What is your process when you say visualize it? Like you just when you were in your apartment, you were just like imagining a crowd in front of you. Like what's your
Yeah.
actual visualization process?
Yeah, like every single time I was at a rave or I was at a show looking at the DJ, I just flipped the perspective and pretended that I was the one on stage looking at the crowd, right? And seeing the crowd
Yeah.
reaction to like, the builds and the drops within the tracks that I was just practicing with.
Cool. Cool, man. It's so true. It's so true. It's mental rehearsal. I mean, athletes do this. They've done studies where they'll take, like a basketball players and they'll run them. They'll say, this group like runs through drills and or just does like X amount of free throws. And then this group does drills and visualization. And then this group does
Hmm.
just visualization. And even the ones that like they just will sit there and have them run through their mind, making the shot, making the shot, making the shot, they actually perform almost just as well as the ones that are like actually doing the physical action of it. It's wild. There's been crazy like studies about that, but I love that, man. See yourself in there. Now, I want to take a few steps back. You said
Hmm.
something really interesting and I think important about your come up, which was when you went to Icon, it sounds like you really just put the blinders on. Like you blocked out, you said you kind of disappeared from the acting world. You were intentional about being super focused and blocking out any kind of narrative or questioning of what you were doing. I think that's really interesting. I want to know a little bit more about your mindset when you went to Icon because it just sounds like you were really focused and really about it. Like it tell me more about like when you actually made that decision and what was going on in your head and what your mindset was like.
Yeah, so I just had such a love for music, and I've always had a love for music since I was a really little kid. But being a musician, being an artist, I didn't think that was a path because I was just familiar with the pop world or I was just familiar with the rap world, right? The very, very first time I even got some sort of a whiff of DJ culture was when I interned at Dim Records when I was still at UCLA. But at the time, Dim was transitioning from an indie label to a dance music label, right? So the only real DJing that I got to see was uh Steve Aoki was my boss there. Probably doesn't remember me today, but I was like, oh, this dude's a DJ and like he travels the world DJing. But I didn't realize that DJ culture, like the productions, were as massive as they are, right?
Yeah.
So when I got into Icon, because I had already experienced so much negative talk and like self doubt talk, not coming from me. Obviously, when people tell you, like, oh, why are you pursuing this avenue? It's so difficult. Like, do you know what you're doing? That self doubt is just a projection coming from within themselves, right? But if you don't have mental resiliency, you might feed into that yourself. So, in order for me to just block all of that out, I decided I'm not even going to tell anyone that I'm pursuing music. I'm not going to tell anyone that I got into this music production program. I'm just going to slowly disappear. If people reach out to me, I'll reach back out to them. But in order for me to really focus, I'm going to have to clear any potential of that coming into my life. So I literally just went ghost on socials for basically that entire year. I hung out with my really close friends. I think I told maybe 5 people, my closest friends. Outside of that, as far as everyone else was concerned, I was still going on auditions. I just wasn't booking, right?
Hmm.
And I was fine with that.
I like this idea of mental resilience that you bring up. And was that, as far as experiencing kind of haters or people that are doubting you and your vision and your dreams and your goals, was that something that you experienced like as an actor when you were pursuing that? Is that where you kind of learned that lesson to just more so stay in your lane and not tell people?
Yeah, without question, especially when I was first getting into it. The second major lesson that acting taught me was to never talk about it. You should be about it. And to also not tell people what you have going on until it's completely solid, right? For example, the very, very first role that I ever booked was this role on the season 4 finale of Castle. I had all of these lines. The whole entire episode revolved around my character's death. But we were filming in downtown LA, all these different locations. I'm actually speaking with the actors and stuff like that. And then when it came time for the premiere a few months later, I posted on Facebook that, hey guys, my very first acting role ever is going to be tonight, season 4 finale of Castle. And Castle was a huge show back then, right? And I was like, I can't wait for you guys to see it. And I got all this hype built up and stuff. And then my friends based on the East Coast, because the East Coast feed was first, they texted me and they were like, dude, that was so cool. And I was like, oh, you watched it? They're like, yeah, it was so cool to see your face on TV. And I said, to see my face on TV. I'm like, but how are my lines? And then they wrote back, what lines? And
Oh
I
no.
realized production cut all my lines, right?
Yeah.
And I hyped up this whole entire thing. So after
Yeah.
that, I don't ever talk about it.
Mm.
And you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to go through sort of that experience again.
Yeah, yeah. I get that. And I've heard both perspectives, on the one hand, I am big on like manifestation, speak your goals,
Hmm.
like speak it into existence, right? And I've also experienced many times too where it's almost like speaking about it too early sometimes it almost like takes
Yeah.
the energy away from it, you know. It's almost like you kind of jinx yourself in a way, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
totally
totally agree.
understand that perspective too, because I've had good handful of examples too where I'm like, hey, I got this thing going on, and it's like, no, then it's taken away and you don't. Right.
So I'm a huge, huge believer in the law of attraction and the law of manifestation. Massive believer. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without tapping into those two, right? But I think you're right. I think there is a way to go about it. For example, again, that role, I did manifest that role, but
Yeah.
that role didn't turn out exactly the way I had thought it was going to, right?
Mhm.
So it's a tool that you can tap into, but I think you have to do it correctly in many ways.
Yeah. Well, and also this is what I love about manifestation is you know, you got to be careful what you wish for sometimes too, because it's like the universe will give it to you, but not necessarily in the way that you want it. Like I was asking to go, I was like, oh, I want to go full time with coaching, and I'm visualizing like, all right, I'm gonna make this transition, I'm gonna save up all this money, I'm gonna have this like, you know, kind of proper exit, and then it was like one day I got laid off from Icon, and it was like, oh, oh, okay, you're going full time with coaching now. I was like, well, that wasn't exactly what I was asking for, but it did work itself out in a mysterious way, you know. And just to
Yeah.
share that story, it's actually really funny. This was wild, where I had a number in my head, in mind, of like, once I save up this amount of money, you know, I'll have a little nest egg. I can make that transition, go full time. You know, I think at some point everybody, you know, you had to make that decision probably at some point too, as an artist. Like, when do I go really full time with it? When do I quit the day job? I had a number in mind, and that's the number I was thinking about. I was literally like locked in on this number, and all of a sudden, you know, I just got called in one day, and they were like, "Hey, look, we see you wanting to go full time with coaching, and we're going in this direction. We're expanding the business in this direction, and you know, we think it's time to part ways. And here's a severance package." That added up to literally the exact dollar amount that I
No
was
way.
wanting. Literally the exact fucking number. Yeah. So
Wow.
it doesn't always work out the way that you want, but also just, yeah, just trusting. There's so much faith. Just trust that there is some divine orchestration out there, that there is some bigger force, some bigger universal fucking energy. And you know, when your heart's in the right place, when you're dedicated to your passion, to your mission, you know, it's like it will all work out. There might be some
Exactly.
some some left turns and some right turns and some spirals and some ups and downs. It's not
Exactly.
going to be a straight line, but like, just trust that all of it actually is in your favor. They say life is happening for you, not to you. You know, the universe
Yeah.
is like in your favor, even if it doesn't look like
Yeah.
that sometimes.
And to add on to that too, it might not happen on your timeline, right? Because as human beings, we always want things now. I want it now.
Yeah.
I want to do this now. I want to go there now. But it always happens in divine timing, and divine timing is never late.
Yes, sir. Preach, brother. That's what's up. Now, I'm curious about, like, one, let me just say, I am such a fan. I'm such a fan of your music. Like, every time you're putting out tracks, I'm like, this is shit I'm actually bumping and listening to and I fuck with. And I just am such a fan of the art, of the music. Were you always doing techno? Like, did you just have a clear vision for the project in the lane of music? I mean, yeah, you said you were starting off DJing for Jeremy Olander, and like, you were just always in that lane. When did that really click for you? Because I think a lot of artists are trying to figure out, like, what is the lane that I want to go for? Like, there's a lot of experimentation sometimes in the beginning, but like, you kind of just had a clear vision. What made it so clear for you that that was the lane you wanted to go down?
So I think the moment, it was a very, very, very specific moment that I realized, oh, this is the lane that I want to go down. I don't even know what this music is called, but I know that I really like it, right? So I was at this music festival in actually first quarter of 2015 when I was at Icon. And I'm sitting next to the stage and I hear this like really cool sort of intergalactic sounding style of dance music that I had never heard before. And the DJ who was playing was this DJ named Tara Brooks.
Yeah.
And I remember I was just there, I was just listening to it so intently, and my friend Travis tapped me on the shoulder and he was like, Travis is very in tune. We call him Zen. He's the Zen master. He just looked at me and he was like, I feel like you're having an epiphany right now. And I was like, yo, I think I am. I was like, I don't know what this style of music is called, but I was like, I feel like I'm meant to pursue this. I don't know how to make it, but I'm going to dedicate my whole entire time at Icon to figuring this style of music out. I'm going to come out with a mix series called Deep Space. I've been toying around with this project name called Anakim, and that ties into like being giants and the giants that are from planet Nibiru, the Anunnaki, and I just felt like this download basically, right? And he just looked at me and he was like, "Whoa." And I literally thought up of my entire artist project sort of in that moment, right? Or at least like the foundations of it. So the style of music that I was listening to was progressive house. I don't make progressive house anymore, but I did start that off in my career. I was a progressive artist, and like I really just focused on that lane. And as time moved on, I sort of started making, especially now, making a much harder style of like progressive and melodic techno. And I always knew that this style of music will become big at a certain point. I love it. I'm going to follow this. If it doesn't, cool. I'm still going to follow it. But like, here we are. It's starting to gain traction all across the world. So yeah, it was that very, very specific moment. And I'm so lucky that it happened to me first quarter of Icon 2,
Yeah.
because it could have happened like way later, right? And I could have been making, Big Room or something like that and been like, oh my God, what is this? And then have to
Yeah.
start over again, right? So again, like
Yeah.
divine timing. Boom, here's the style of music. You're gonna love it.
Yeah. And like that's so rad. That's such a cool story of just like a download from the universe. This lightning bolt hit you. It was very similar to me, a year and a half ago. I'd kind of been coaching all different types of people, and there was a while where I was going to quit. I didn't really know. In a breathwork session that I had here out in Austin, there was just this intuitive download, literally a lightning bolt. I was just like, yo, coach artists, these are your people, this is your lane. And it's like since then it's been so fucking clear, and it's beautiful when that happens. And I think also, there is an element of, I don't know, yeah, just being kind of tapped into that intuitive side of
Yeah,
yourself, that like you have to be a bit tapped in, like you have to like not be super hooked on all the external noise of like, what should I do, what's everybody else doing, like what everyone has a fucking opinion. But like when you feel that thing in your heart, that inner compass that's like, no, this is the direction to go, then follow that and trust that. And also, though, I do want to say that there's also that for me, that did happen 5 years after coaching and coaching a lot of different people in a lot of different spaces. There is also is, probably the more normal journey is for people to fuck around with a lot of different genres and kind of try things out, and until you
yeah, yeah.
find that thing. Like that's a bit probably where I think a lot, it's okay to be in that process too, is what I'm saying as well. Like how many artists do we know that are making a certain genre that now that like they had 2 or 3 other projects that were making something completely fucking different. I remember Sullivan King was making fucking Big Room House when he came to Icon, and now he's making metal dubstep and playing guitar on it. Like, you got to start somewhere. So it's cool that you had that download. And if you don't have the download, it's all good. Keep fucking around and see what clicks, see what feels good.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot has happened since then. I love that you also had that internal knowing of, I really like this music. This music lights me up. There's something special about it. I also know and trust that it's going somewhere. I oftentimes I use Eric Prydz as an example. I'm like, this guy apparently he was one of the like founding members with Swedish House Mafia is the urban legend, but he split off because he's like, I want to make 8-minute long songs that play the same fucking 4 bars over and over again, and like at that time that was not what was cool, but he had a vision and trusted that like, I know that I like this stuff and that eventually there is going to be a space for it. And sure enough, there is. Now, a lot has happened since then. You're now out there touring, doing really cool shit. I just watched your whole YouTube video series where you've got like 20-minute, 30-minute long, really cool long form content, tour videos, lifestyle videos. One, it's just so cool to see. It's super entertaining. I love watching them. This is something I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, is this shift to long form content, right? We are living in this kind of ADD society now, this generation of 30-second TikTok clips and minute reels at the most. So we're lucky to have anybody's attention for more than fucking 2 seconds. And I'm hearing, yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of people online talking about, kind of a shift towards long form content. What inspired you to start creating those videos? Because I just don't see a lot of artists doing that.
It's interesting. So my manager, Michael, I think is a visionary. I've had the pleasure of working with a few really good managers, but I realized nobody compares to Michael. And Michael one day was like, you know, here's what I think you need to do. And I was like, okay, I'm all ears. I'm a very open person. I never shut down an idea, right? Michael was like, I think we should focus on YouTube. You're playing shows and you're touring enough that we can really capture what it's like behind the scenes as an upcoming artist. And he was like, and the thing that separates you right now is the fact that you do have camera experience. You have
Mm.
been on sets, right? He's like, every single time I speak to you, I just see this really vibrant personality that I feel like we need to capture on video because an Instagram post here or there is just not doing it justice, right?
Yeah.
He was like, "So what do you think?" And I was like, yeah, I'm totally cool with that. Why not, right? Like why not tap into my on-camera experience because I'm very there's a lot of people who are not comfortable having a camera in their face, but like I don't even
Yeah.
notice it for the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
part, right?
Totally.
So yeah, so he was basically like, if we don't tap into this YouTube thing, I feel like we're leaving a lot on the table. We got to
Yeah.
just tap into it, right? So it just so happened that we had been filming like where once we started this idea, that's when some like really big shows came along, and then my tour in Turkey came literally like I think a month after we had even conceptualized the idea. So again, law of attraction, law of manifestation, tapping into something, the universe is like, oh, cool, you want to do this? Here you go. But yeah, the whole idea behind it is I just want to be able to show people my journey from the point that I'm at now to wherever it is we're going, right? Like, not gonna lie, how big do we want to make this project? As big as possible. But I want to show people exactly what it took to get there. And hopefully, if they watch this, they can say to themselves, man, if he could do it, I can do it too. I hope I can inspire people to have the confidence within themselves to pursue this thing, right? Because literally, if I can do it, I knew nobody when I first started, knew absolutely nobody in the music industry. But if I can even get to the point where I'm at now, anybody listening to this, anybody watching this, should know that they can do it too. And hopefully, this vlog series can show them that as well.
Yeah. I love that. And hopefully this podcast can inspire them and show them that as well. And I want to dig into some of the tips that you have for artists that are on the come up. Before we get into that, though, I find this really interesting distinction with what you shared, where the actual decision was coming from to start long form content. I've been hearing people on social media talking about like, oh, this is long form content is the future or whatever the more of the kind of business strategy reason might be. But this is why I think your manager actually really is a genius and very smart, where it's actually more coming from what are your strengths, right?
Yes.
You have on camera experience. How can we use that and play into that? Because, yeah, long form content isn't going to make sense for someone who's super introverted and isn't good at talking to a camera. And you know what I mean? So I like that that was actually where it was leading from. And there's a really great lesson in there for everyone to think about, like, well, what are my strengths?
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to Rinzin on the podcast before, and he comes from a blogging background. He's like, I love writing. I love writing. I write long form. I've written like thousands of long form articles. And so he incorporates writing into his project. He writes these really long, elegant pieces of copy and like stories that come out with everything. Like, cool, lean into that strength, right? So I think that's a really cool seed to plant and to think about of like, what are some of your natural gifts, some of your natural strengths, and how can you bring those into your marketing and your strategy and just your brand in general?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Also, I'm gonna say I wanted to say this earlier, but I'm not surprised that you started actually in modeling because you are a sexy motherfucker. If anyone's not watching this on YouTube, go on YouTube and go see how handsome this man is. And I'm just gonna put that out there. You still got to do a little bit of modeling on the side too, man. Lean
Appreciate
into
that.
those
Thank you.
lean into those good looks, baby.
You
Let them see.
flatter.
Let them see what's up. But as you are walking forward on this mission of inspiring people through the long form content through your YouTube channel, which is so cool. Everyone go watch it. It's super entertaining. It's so fun to see and so fun to watch. What do you think it really takes? Like, what straightforward advice would you give to somebody that is starting their journey or in the middle of their journey? What does it really take to actually succeed as an artist?
So everybody thinks that good music is what it takes to succeed as an artist. But in my point of view, having good music, having really killer music is like a high school diploma, right? That's like the base level of entry. So, what is it that you need to go farther? And the thing that I always tell people is, and we touched base on this already, I think you have to cultivate mental resiliency and you have to just have crazy self-belief within yourself. So you mix the almost delusional self-belief, right? Mix that with an undying work ethic and you will get places, right? You really have to, there's a lot of things that can come up in an artist journey. A lot of roadblocks, a lot of no's. You have to be okay with getting rejected. So you have to persevere over all of this stuff. But that starts with how mentally resilient are you to keep going forward, right? Like, are you able to take rejection? Are you able to hear from somebody that your music sucks? But you have the capacity within yourself to keep the train moving forward, right? I think that's one of my strengths in life is that at the end of the day, like I just really don't give a fuck. If you don't like my music, then I know that my music is not for you, right?
Yeah.
If you got bad vibes, I don't want you at my show either. I know that my music, my artistry will reach the right people. You will also reach the wrong people and they will try to say stuff to you, but they're not for you. So just keep it going. Keep working towards that goal. Never stop believing in yourself. And always remember that and this sounds so cliche, but hard work does trump talent, right? What is talent? Talent is something that you actually have to work hard at. So just keep it going.
Yeah. Wow. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I also like that you bring up this idea of being delusional
Hmm.
because this has been a theme from a lot of conversations that I've been having. It's been brought up on the podcast multiple times is like that relentless self-belief, but
Hmm.
to the point of being a bit delusional, of being like a
Hmm.
little bit fucking crazy. And you have to be because
Hmm.
normal people don't do this shit. This is what like
Exactly.
1%, less than 1% of people are doing it. So you can't be normal. You can't think normally. You can't see yourself in the same way. Like you have to be different, and which means like you got to be crazy. We kind of look at this idea of being crazy as like a bad thing, but like no, you need to be delusional. You need to have a different illusion of reality that you see
Yes,
and that you believe in that other people don't. The other 99.9% of people that are going to just accept the template that they've been fed, you got to break
exactly.
out of that matrix and say, no, I know that this is possible, right? This is a very common thread that I'm seeing between a lot of, the artists that are really out there doing it.
Exactly. So to touch base on that, you have to, in order for this to actually not be delusional, I mean, it still is at the same time, in order for you to have this delusional self-belief, but to make it actually a thing, you have to pair that with a just as intense work ethic, right? Because if you have the self-belief, but you don't have the work ethic behind you, then it really is just delusion. But
Yeah.
if you're working just as hard as you believe in yourself, that's when it starts speaking to the universe, and that's when really good things start to happen. And again, it might not happen on your timeline, the listener. It might not happen on your timeline, but it'll always happen in divine timing.
Yeah.
And if you just keep going, you will see that really, really good things happen in your life because I just feel like I'm a walking product of that, right? I've always believed in myself, even if I didn't have the tools, even if I didn't have the talent. I said to myself, you know what? I'm gonna dedicate my life to this. I'm gonna work really hard. You will never outwork me. And then I'm gonna figure it out on the way. I'm gonna make it happen. But I know that if I continue this, I know if I keep working hard at it, I will make it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's another big important piece, which, not everybody has, but it doesn't hurt if you also can be around other people that are doing it. Like if you see other people that are living the reality that you want, then it becomes much more normalized, right? If you never see anybody doing it, then it's always going to seem like it's this sort of far-fetched dream. And I think, perhaps everybody starts there. It's like it's just kind of
Yeah.
you by yourself in your bedroom and you don't know anyone that is like a full-time artist yet, but it's something I would say to manifest, or at the very least, you got to be around other people that have that same level of belief and same level of work ethic, because then when they do start succeeding, you start to believe it a little bit more. Like, oh, wait, like they just got signed to a record label. I could probably get signed to one too. And like, oh, they just got started touring. Like, okay, cool. When you hang around successful people, you're going to become more successful, right? Like if you want to be a millionaire, you got to hang around with millionaires because then it normalizes that actually is a possibility and that is a reality. So it's like surrounding yourself with the right people, getting into the right circles. I think that makes a difference as well.
Yeah, there's a really big lesson in that too. So I'm sure everybody has heard the saying, you are like the five closest people you hang out with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're full of ambition and you're full of work ethic and you're full of belief in yourself, if you're hanging out with people who lack ambition, who just want to hang around and like drink all day or do drugs, whatever, and they also, doubt you and talk down to you and whatnot, the chances of you fulfilling your potential diminish exponentially. So you do need to find a group that has, the same aspirations or are doing the things that you also want to be doing too, because that will sort of align you with that purpose and it will help motivate and drive you towards the goal that you have in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something that I teach in my group coaching program. And something I learned from another coach is the saying that you got to separate to elevate, right? You got to separate
That's
yourself
what a
from the
fantastic
stuff.
thing.
Yeah, you got to separate yourself from the habits and the vices and the things that don't serve you, but also really the relationships. And the hardest thing is like that might actually be your own family. That might be your family doesn't believe in you. Like, all right, you got to create some space. You got to create some distance. You got to create some distance from those friends that don't have that same level of ambition. And yeah, they just want to chill and party. And big one I see too is a lot of times you got to make the decision of do you want to be in the crowd or do you want to be on the stage,
Yeah.
right? A lot of us come in, myself included. I came in as a raver. I was going out. We were
Yeah.
fucking partying. We were getting crazy, and but then I was like, wait a minute. I remember a day. I remember seeing on stage, like just even the stage hands, the stage manager, like I'm like, who are those guys up there? I want to be up there. I didn't have the vision of like I necessarily want to be the DJ, but I was like, oh, I want to be the guy that's like whatever he's doing back there. I was like, I want to get back there. And so I realized I'm like, oh damn, I actually have to leave these friends behind.
Yep.
Unfortunately, because they were party friends. They were caught up in that scene, and I love them. And that was a beautiful chapter. I even just made a post about it the other day on my Instagram of just like
That's
how
fun.
fun it was to start there. But there was a decision that I had to make, and this is something I often call clients out on, or I'll call just people out. I'm like, yo, how much time are you still spending in the crowd? Not to say to don't go out and have fun, but it's like also, yo, you just dropped $2,000 to go to this festival and get fucked up for 3 days. It's like that's $2,000 that you could have put into your business and that's 3 days or maybe more of a week because now you're also recovering for a week. You just lost a week. Like how serious are you? How fucking serious are you? You really want to be up there? Then act like it. You know what I mean? And those are just the
Yeah.
sacrifices that we got to make. And again, I'm not still go have fun. You know what I mean? I'm not demonizing, partying at all. Like, I think it's great. You also got to have those trips and go to those festivals sometimes where you're just there to have fun. But, I do see people, I'm like, bro, you were just at a festival like 2 weeks ago and you're at another one and you're saying you're about this. Like, what are you really doing?
Yeah. So over um, the pandemic was major silver lining for me. Prior to all of this artist stuff, I was that person in the crowd. I was the person partying. I was raving, right?
Yeah.
And then as the artist projects started to get bigger and bigger, and I could see the potential of where things could go, I realized that, going out every weekend and like supporting this friend and this party friend. Oh, this person has a small DJ gig here and whatnot. I realized that that was actually starting to get in the way of what I was pursuing, right?
Yep.
But what the pandemic showed me is that I was drinking too much.
Mm.
And that was
Mm-hmm.
really what was getting in the way of things. So in the middle of 2020, actually July 17th, I just decided to quit drinking cold turkey completely. And
Yeah.
I haven't had a sip of alcohol since then. So it's going to be 4 years next month. And that's one of
Wow.
the greatest decisions that I've ever made. Mental clarity on point, never feeling down, always have energy. But on top of that, instead of drinking, what I've replaced a lot of that stuff with is going to the gym and working out. And I cannot stress this enough. And you know this because you're one of the strongest dudes that I know in my entire life. The work ethic that you cultivate in a gym, the dedication that you put, you don't have to be a bodybuilder, right? But the dedication, the work ethic, the the grit, the determination that you build inside of the gym, all of that bleeds into every other aspect of your life. And that has all bled in to what I put into the Anakim project, right? So
Yep.
eliminating alcohol, picking up, working out, and going to the gym like 4 to 5 times a week, cultivating all of those because those are talents too, like dedication, work ethic and stuff. You should consider those talents as well. All of that bleeds into my project now, and I feel like my project has, at least behind the scenes, exponentially, even what people can see is exponentially made a leap forward because I eliminated so much bad and replaced it with so much good.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I want to open up and be a little bit vulnerable and share this as well as someone who is at their 4 year mark. I had about 4 years of, and I'd taken some pretty big breaks before. I'd had a couple years off at a time, but I had 4 years off from drinking. And then I got to the place where I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I could have a beer with my burger, tonight at dinner. And then I was like, oh, I could have a couple Trulies at the pool. And I slowly started to reintroduce it back into my life. But I very, very quickly learned it was like, it did not serve me. It probably contributed to me sabotaging the relationship that I was in. Like, you had a few nights out, where I'm just like, fucking blacked out in the middle of downtown, like,
Hmm.
what the fuck am I doing here, and so just to say some words of encouragement to continue on that path. Sometimes we get to a point where you're like, oh, I have this thing, like, oh, I'm good, like I'm good and I can celebrate a little bit. And at least from my perspective, it really didn't work. So it's been about another year and a half since I've stopped again. So
Hmm.
just appreciate you sharing that, man. Encourage you to keep going. Like, you're seeing, it's working, bro. It's working. You know what I mean? And I've not met one person that was like, man, I stopped drinking and my life just fucking sucks more now. Like, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, everything has fallen apart since I stopped drinking. It's like not one fucking person says that. And more and more artists that I talk to as well, dude, like, dude, I can't even count like how many that are like, yeah, when I made that decision to put the party behind is when shit started popping off. I started getting more bookings, making better music, better
Yeah.
relationships. So again, not to demonize any of it, but like, if
Yeah.
some people can handle it. I know some people are like, they're fucking good. I'm not one of them personally. I'm like, I'm gonna get fucked up. Like, I'm gonna get fucked up and probably fuck some shit up in my life. That's what's gonna happen. So I just gotta know where I'm at. But again, not to demonize it, but be honest with yourself. If you know it's slowing you down, if you know it's like what I call like the parking brake that you have on in your life
Hmm.
that's preventing you
Hmm.
from accelerating at the level that you know you could be, like just try it out. Give yourself 6 months. See what happens. Like probably only good shit's gonna happen.
Exactly. I just realized that I was a person that can't operate with alcohol in my life at all because
Yeah.
I am 0 to 60. It's like if I have
Yeah.
one, it's going to be way more
Yeah.
than two, right?
Same. Same.
Um, and so I realize, so not to demonize anybody who's listening to this, but you just have to be really honest with yourself, right?
Yep.
And then also, whatever it is you're pursuing in life, if you have this major goal, you just have to ask yourself, and I sort of gamify everything in my life. And the game is, how bad do you want it? Well, if alcohol is what's in your way, but you're not giving it up, I guess you don't want it bad enough, right?
Yeah.
And I had to actually say that to myself.
Yeah.
So I said, how bad do you want it? And I said, I'll do anything for it, is what I said. So that's how I was
Yeah.
able to quit it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's real shit. It's real shit. And then like once you start to get it, you realize like, damn, that's worth it. you know? It's like maybe it's hard in the beginning, like, oh, I'm FOMO missing out on all the parties and all that stuff. But it's like once you actually start getting the results, you're like, oh, this is way better than a night out at a club, you know? I have one more thing I want to ask you about. You launched a record label fairly recently,
I
right?
did.
Yeah. So tell me about the record label and also how did you know like this was time? A lot of artists I think know at some point I want to start my own label. Like how did you know that like this was the time to do that for you in your career?
So I think what it really is that I operate my project much differently than a lot of people want to operate their projects. And this was sort of an understanding that came between me and my manager. I realized that one of the things that was slowing me down the most was playing the label game. And I'm not
Yeah.
deterring anybody from sending your music out. If you want to be on this label or you want to be on that label, like go for it, right? I have released on really cool labels and I have released on labels that I've really wanted to be on. But the fact of the matter is that every single time I would send out a piece of music, maybe I wouldn't hear back for 2 weeks if I even heard back, right? So that track was just sort of in this waiting queue. And then
Yeah.
if I heard back and it was a no, I had to repeat the process. And it was just
Yeah.
huge chunks of time that were
Yeah.
that were stalling me in my project. So I decided to take that power back into my own hands. And that's when I realized, oh, I've had this concept for a record label since I graduated from Icon. It's what I wrote in my music business plan. It's
Mm.
called Celestial Body. It's going to be my label. I'm going to start off releasing my tracks first, but then I'm going to move into collaborations and then start releasing other people's tracks. And that's essentially exactly what I did. So, for people who are listening, for people who are watching this, if you don't know me, I've been pretty independent my entire career. And so starting my own label and staying sort of independent was just a really natural progression for me, right? And so now that I'm able to release a track every single month on cue, as
Yeah.
long as I have the catalog, which I do, it's brought this new joy back into my life of releasing music. Like as long as I get footage of me playing the track at a show, then there's the content to market as well, right? And then we
Yeah.
work with a really really sick DJ promo service to get the music in artists' hands, like the right
Yeah.
artists' hands, artists that I may not necessarily have a relationship with. So we just had all of the pieces, and it's just fun taking back that control.
Mm. I love that you say that it's fun. I love seeing you light up when you say it brought the joy back. If y'all aren't watching on YouTube, you could just see how he just lit up. He smiled. And I think that's such a common challenge for so many artists is it's playing the label game and then you're spending a month or 2 or 3 just trying to get this track signed and then they sign it and then they don't even put it out for another 3 months or something and it's like yo that track is 6 months old now and by the time it comes out
Yeah.
you're like I don't even like this fucking song anymore like it's
Yeah.
definitely a common challenge so cool to see you taking that ownership back and just doing it yourself, man. I'm excited to see this label take off and see the vision for it come to life. It's been marinating since the end of Icon, as you said. So it's time to get out there and really, have it flap its wings, dude. That's exciting.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so I just want to also let people know, like, the reason why we started the label is because we just really believe that we can do a better job doing it ourselves, right? I
Yeah.
want to let everybody know watching this that if you have any doubts about starting your own label and actually being in charge of the distribution and the marketing of your own music, I promise you, you most likely will be able to do it better than a lot of these labels that you think you want to be on. Like, you are enough. You are all you need to succeed.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it's when it's your thing, you're gonna put a lot more time and energy and passion and heart into it than when you're like, oh, you're one of 20 artists that this label is putting out this month. Like, how much time and attention are you really gonna get from them too? So,
Without question.
uh, I love it, bro. I love it, man. You are navigating the journey so well, and I'm so excited to see where you go from here. I want to come out to Vegas because I realized after EDC how many homies and friends live out there. So I'm gonna come see you in person. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna fucking bro down. But I really appreciate you taking the time to come on today. Super cool to just see what you have created and just the amazing music that you're making, the label that's getting off the ground, and the amazing fucking YouTube series. I love it. So everyone go watch the YouTube series. Go follow the journey of Anakim. He is out here crushing it. I love you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on today.
I love you, Nick. Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute honor. And to everybody listening or watching, thank you so much. If you want to connect with me, the best way to do it is via Instagram. My handle is just at Anakim. I literally reply to every single message. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. You're not bothering me at all. I promise you.
Hell yeah. Hit him up.